Hello and welcome to my own personal top 40 of 1987. In these videos I take you through my enormous collection of Spotify playlists. I have top 40s from 1970 to 1991, annuals from 1925 to the present day, artist specials, genre specials, themed shows, and many, many more. And many of those playlists become radio shows, and you can hear all of those on Mixcloud. And there's a link to the radio show of today's Top 40 in the description. There's also a link to all the playlists from today. My Top 40 from 1987, 87 songs from 87, which means songs that were in the top 40 but didn't get into my top 40, and 1987 extras, which is songs that didn't enter the UK top 40. Alright then, into the top 40 we go. Number 40, Fleetwood Mac, Big Love, spent 2 weeks at 9 in May of 87. Number 39, Blow Monkeys, It Doesn't Have to Be This Way, spent a week at 5 in February of 87. Number 38, Black, Sweetest Smile, spent a week at 8 in July of 87. And number 37, Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full, spent a week at 15 in November of 87. 36, The Cult, Little Devil, spent a week at 11 in May of 87. At 35, Wet, 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 Angel Eyes, spent a week at 5 in January of 88, although it did enter the UK top 40 in 1987. Number 34, Wax, Bridge to Your Heart, spent 3 weeks at 12 in August and September of 87. 33, Randy Crawford, Almaz, spent 2 weeks at 4 in February of 87. I love Randy Crawford. 32, George Michael, Faith, spent 2 weeks at 2 in November of 87. And at 31, Mel and Kim, Respectable, spent a week at number 1, straddling March and April of 87. Into my top 30. At number 30, Terence Trent D'Arby, If You Let Me Stay. He goes by the name Sananda Maitreya now. At number 29, Carol Fialka, Hey Matthew, spent a week at 9, straddling September and October of 87. I had totally forgotten about that song until I did this chart. 28, U2, With or Without You, spent 2 weeks at 4, straddling March and April of 87. And at 27, Crowded House, Don't Dream It's Over, spent 2 weeks at 27, straddling June and July of 87. I'd have thought that would have done better than that. Number 26, Bon Jovi, Wanted, Dead or Alive, 1 week at 13 in May of 87. And at 25, Jodie Watley, Looking for a New Love, spent a week at 13 in June of 87. At 24, Sly and Robbie, Boops, Here to Go, spent 2 weeks at 12 in May of 87. At 23, Mars, Pump Up the Volume, spent 2 weeks at number 1 in October of 1987. At 22, Duran Duran, Meet El Presidente, spent 1 week at 24 in May of 87. And at 21, Pogues and Kirsty MacColl, Fairy Tale of New York, spent 2 weeks at 2, straddling December of 87 and January of 1988. Into the top 20 now. At number 20, Erasure, The Circus, spent 1 week at 6 in November of 87. And at 19, Billy Idol, Sweet 16, spent a week at 17 in July of 87. And number 18, Suzanne Vega, Luca, spent 2 weeks at 23 in June of 87. And at 17, Wet, 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 Wishing I Was Lucky, spent a week at 6 in June of 87. At 16, Simply Red, The Right Thing, spent a week at 11 in March of 87. And at 15, Duran Duran, Skin Trade, spent a week at 22 in March of 87, Trey Funky. At 14, Curiosity Killed the Cat, Down to Earth, spent 3 weeks at 3, straddling February and March of 87. And at 13, Pet Shop Boys, It's a Sin, spent 3 weeks at number 1 in July of 1987. At 12, Donna Allen, Serious. Oh, what a great song. Spent a week at 8 in June of 87. At 11, Hue and Cry, Labour of Love, very, very funky. Spent 2 weeks at 6 in August of 87. Into the top 10. Number 10, The Smiths, Sheila Take a Bow. Spent a week at 10 in May of 87. At 9, Prince, If I Was Your Girlfriend, spent a week at 20 in July of 87. Number 8, Black, Wonderful Life, spent a week at 8 in September of 87. At 7, Level 42, Running in the Family, spent a week at 6 in March of 87. And at 6, Curiosity Killed the Cat, for the third time in this chart. Misfit, spent a week at 7 in July of 87. And number 5, U2, Where the Streets Have No Name, spent a week at 4 in September of 87. And at number 4, Peter Gabriel, Big Time, what a tune, spent a week at 13 in April of 87. Number 3, Terence Trent D'Arby or Sananda Maitreya, Wishing Well spent 2 weeks at 4 in July of 87. Number 2, The Smiths, Shoplifters of the World Unite spent 2 weeks at 12 in February of 87. And at number 1, my own personal number 1, Prince, Sign of the Times, spent a week at 10, straddling March and April of 87. So there you go. That's my own personal top 40 of 1987. And you can hear that on Spotify. There's a link in the description. The screen you're looking at right now is 87 songs from 1987, which are songs that did enter the UK Top 40 but didn't make my own personal Top 40. Now, I've said it in previous shows, I would change this chart now. I would take some of my Top 40 out, put some of those in. It really depends. There's two things, you see. One is your daily taste. How do you feel today? And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Eric B. and Rakim, but their song is quite low in my top 40 because at the time of doing this, I was more into other things than I was into classic hip hop. The other reason, which is probably more pertinent, is that the Mixcloud, the place where I put my radio shows, doesn't allow you to have more than 2 or 3 songs by the same artist, or it will block your show. And it's not worth recording an entire 3-hour show just for it to be blocked at the end. So rather than take chances, I had to leave some songs out. For example, I had another Smith song, I had another Prince song, and another U2 song in this top 40, but I took them out because I just didn't want my show to be blocked. So there's a lot of lovely songs in that 87 songs from 1987. And let me know in the comments what you loved about 1987's music. It was a bit of a... there was a lot of rubbish in the charts, but there's always rubbish in the charts every year. So let me know what songs you loved from 87, what albums you loved from 87. Now, let's take a look at 1987 extras. Okay, these are songs that weren't in the UK Top 40, album tracks, or songs that just didn't reach high enough to get into the top 40. Maybe they were outside the top 40, maybe they didn't enter the charts at all. And as you can see, I have my own personal favorites. You can see which albums I loved from 1987. So there you go. There's 3 playlists for you, full of lovely, lovely music from 1987. I suggest you go over to Spotify and indulge yourself. Remember, I've got top 40s from 1970 all the way through to 1991, but not after 1991 because the charts really went downhill so much that I wasn't interested. You may be surprised to know that the research that goes into these shows is enormous. I go through every week of the UK charts, and I did that from 1970 all the way to the end of 1991, so that's a lot of weeks. That's 52 times 22. Okay, so that's a lot. So, you've had enough time to look at those. I will just now say all my videos live here, so subscribe, like if you like, and leave your comments. All my playlists live on Spotify, and all my radio shows live on Mixcloud. I will be back tomorrow with 1988, my top 40 of 1988, 88 songs from 1988, and 1988 extras. Until then, have yourself a lovely day. Bye-bye.